Hello, and welcome to the first episode in a series of videos that's going to teach you how to make your very own Minecraft plugins. Now, for this video, you will need a Minecraft server, and I'll link a video that I made about that up here in the top right. Without further ado, let's get into the video. The very first thing we need is we need to install a plugin for IntelliJ called Minecraft Development. So let's go over here to plugins and go to Marketplace and type Minecraft, and here it is, Minecraft Development. So let's install that. And it's going to prompt us to restart our IDE, which we can do in a second. But before we do that, we are going to be doing this series in Kotlin, because I personally prefer it over Java, and I think it's a good language to learn because it seems to be the language that a lot of developers are switching to over Java. So we're just going to check that we have Kotlin installed, the Kotlin plugin, and we do. Now this should be installed by default with IntelliJ, but if it's not, you can just go over here and install it just like you would any other plugin. So now we should restart our IDE, and once it's started back up, we can now create a new project. So let's go here and click New Project, and this should open up the New Project window. Here it is. So on the side here, you just want to come down to Minecraft, and if this is not here, it means you have not installed the plugin correctly, and you want to go back and check that. So for us, we're going to do a Paper plugin, because Paper is the best server right now. We could also make a Spigot plugin, or a Bukkit plugin, and these are all going to be compatible with each other for the most part, but in this series of videos, we're going to be making a Paper plugin. So let's just hit next. And then for the group ID, you want to put me.yourname. So for me, I'm going to do ominous, so O-M-I-N-O-U-S, like that. So if your name was, say, Bob, you'd do me.Bob, just like that. Okay, then for the artifact ID, we're going to name this the name of our project. So I'm going to call it My First Plugin. And then down here for the version, you can leave this as is, but I really hate this snapshot thing here, so I'm just going to delete that. So once you've done that, we can leave this on Maven. That's good. Then we can come down to next. Everything here is fine the way it is, but if you want to change it, any of these, you can change the description, you can put you as the author, whatever you want, but it's totally fine to leave it blank. For me, the latest version is 1.18.2, but the Minecraft Wild update 1.19 is just come out, so once they update to that, you'll want to switch to that. So probably when you're seeing this, this will be 1.19, but for me, this is all right. I'm just gonna hit next, and then for the project name, also type My First Plugin, just like that. And then we can hit create, and this will start up our project. So because we're using Kotlin, there's a few things we need to do before we actually start coding, because by default, this plugin will generate a Java project. And IntelliJ is very, very good at switching Java code to Kotlin code because they're actually made by the same company. And all of this stuff down here is just about importing all our dependencies and stuff, and something about plugins as well. I'm just going to resize these because they don't need to be quite that big. So you just want to wait till all of this is finished, which for me is pretty fast because I've already created a project. But for you, creating it for the first time, it might take a little bit. All right, so now that we have our project open, we're going to come over here. We're going to expand this My First Plugin. We're going to go under SRC. We're going into main, Java, this package, and then you should see your file right here. So this is the boilerplate code for a Minecraft plugin. Now, we could go ahead and just build this, but it wouldn't do anything. And I'll explain what all this stuff does in a minute. But before that, we can see that right now, this is a Java file. This is Java code. And we want to switch that to Kotlin code. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. We're going to right click on our file. We're going to come all the way down here to convert Java file to Kotlin file. We're going to click on that. It'll say Kotlin is not configured in the project. So we can just say, okay, configure Kotlin in the project. And just hit okay there. And it will jump over to our pom.xml, which is a file from Maven that basically outlines all the dependencies and how to build the project. But we're just going to hit this little reload arrow up here, and this will download all the stuff we need for Kotlin and bring that all into our project. So we just have to wait for this to be finished. Okay, now that that's done, we can close this pom.xml. That's fine. And then we can come back to here and right click on it again. and hit convert Java file to Kotlin file, and it'll start. And it'll prompt us. It'll say some code in the rest of your project may require corrections after performing this conversion. So we can just say yes, that's fine. Okay, so now we have our main plugin class in Kotlin, and that's great. So now we can actually start coding. So what you say here is a onEnable and onDisable, because they are functions that are called when your plugin starts up. So when the server loads your plugin, it will call this onEnable, and when it unloads your plugin, it'll call this onDisable. And these just come from this Java plugin extension up here. And the first thing that we're going to make our plugin do is print a message in the console when it starts up. So in this onEnable, we're going to go down a line, and you can remove this comment if you want, but I'm going to leave it there. So we are going to type logger, and this is going to reference the plugin's logger. I'm going to do dot info, and then we have to pass in a string. So quotation marks, and then we can say the plugin has loaded, just like that. So now, when our plugin loads, it will say the plugin has loaded in the console. So let's copy this and put it in onDisable as well, and then change this to the plugin as unloaded. Okay, so now we're going to build this and try it out. So if you come over here to this Maven tab, and if you don't have this, it's on the side, you can just click open that. And then we're going to expand this, expand lifecycle. I'm going to right click on package and hit run Maven build. And once we do that, it'll pop up this down here, and it will start building our project. And once that's finished, it'll create a folder called target, and that will contain all of our jar files. Okay, so you see this is finished. Now we can come over here and expand this target folder, and we're gonna right click on the my first plugin 1.0.jar, and we're going to copy that, and then we can bring that over to our server that it has said, here we go, right down here. The plugin has loaded, and that's from your plugin. And that is great. Your plugin is up and running, and we can even type /pl or plugin or plugins, and you will see your plugin there. So that's amazing. We have a plugin running on the server, and now all we need to do is add some more logic to it. So if we come back to our plugin, in this video, we're going to be learning about events. And how an event works is it's basically any time that something is done in Minecraft, it calls an event. So anytime a player jumps, anytime a player moves, anytime a player sends a chat message, there is an event in the Spigot API for that. Well, most things, not all things, but most things. So what we want to do is we want to say that, hey, every time this thing happens, we want to call a function on our plugin and run some logic. So we can do that by creating an event listener. So the first thing we're going to do is right click and create a new package. Now this is really just for organization, but we're going to call this listeners, just like that. And then we're going to right click on that package. I'm going to create a new Kotlin class file. And we're going to type layer jump listener, just like that. So now we have this new class called player jump listener. And in order to make a function here that will actually be called when the player jumps, we have to first implement listener, and in Kotlin we can do that by just doing this little colon and then listener. And you want to make sure you import it from the right place. You want the org.bukkit.event one and not any of these other ones. So that one. You see it'll add this import up here. So now we've implemented listener. So then we can go down a line, and we're going to type @event handler. And then underneath, we're going to declare a function. And in Kotlin we do that by doing fun, and then the name of our function. So I'm going to call it player jump event. Okay, and then we can open brackets because this is going to need to take in a few parameters, or just one parameter actually. And that parameter is going to be called event because this is going to be the actual type of event. Because up until now we haven't actually said, okay, we want this to be a jump event. So what we're doing here is we're saying we're creating a new parameter. And we're saying the type is, with this little colon, player, event. And you should see here, so we can import that by hitting enter. And then we can just open our function. So now, every time a player jumps, it should call this. But that's actually not going to happen yet, because we haven't told our plugin that this class here needs to be told when an event happens. So we're going to go back to our main class, and we're going to create a new function. So fun. I'm going to create one called register listeners. And that does not need to take any parameters. We can just open that. And then from our onEnable, we're just going to call register listeners like that. So in this register listeners, we're going to type server, that references the server, plugin manager dot register events. And you want to make sure this is register events with an S and not register event. So this one down here. Then it's asking for the listener. And if you remember, this player jump listener class implemented the listener from org.bukkit, which is the one it's asking for. So we can pass in player jump listener, just like that, and it's just a player jump listener. And then the second thing it wants is the plugin. And this class is a plugin because here it extends Java plugin. So we can just type this, and that should work. So what I like to do here is just add a message for when this has been registered. So we can do logger.info, just like we did before, and then we can just say registered listeners, like that. So now our plugin will just tell us when it's registered the listeners. And there's a yellow underline here because it's saying this function can be private because it's not called from any other class. So we're just going to do that. Make it private. There we go. So now this function will be called whenever a player jumps. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to send the player a message saying you jumped every time they jump. So the first thing we need to do is get a reference to the player, and we can just store this in a variable just in case we need to access it again. And this will never change, so we can make it a val, which basically means that this value, once assigned, will never change. So we can do val player equals, and we don't have to declare a type here because Kotlin will automatically see that, okay, this is a player, and it will just make this variable of type player. So we can do player, and then we can do event dot player, and this is accessing this variable, and this variable contains a player. So we're accessing that and we're assigning it to this player. Now you don't have to do this, you could just call event.player every time, but it's a bit cleaner to do it this way. So now we're going to do player.sendMessage, like that, and then a string, and we're going to just say you jumped, like that. We should have done everything we needed to do in order to make this message say you jumped to the player who jumped. And this, when we do player.sendMessage, this will only send a message to that specific player. So it's not like sending a chat message where it will go to everybody. It will only go to this specific player. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on this target folder and delete it because that's the old one. And there is a better way to do that, but for now it's okay. We can just delete it. And then we can come back up here to package and run Maven build. And now that that's finished, we can again open our target folder, copy our plugin over to our plugins folder. So we just delete the one that's already there because that's the old version. And we can paste in a new one. Then we can come back to our server and we want to make sure we restart it so it updates with all the new logic. And we should see in here registered listeners. And yep, here we are. Okay, and now we can come over here and log into our server. And now that we're in, we can see that every time we jump, it sends a message saying you jumped. So it worked, our plugins worked. And that's amazing because events are the base of basically everything you will do with Minecraft plugins. It's how you interact with the game. So that is very important to know. So that's amazing. We have now used an event and we've set up our plugin so that when the player jumps, it calls some code. And that could be anything. That could be something much more complex than saying you jumped. Like it could launch you into the air, or it could damage you, or it could do whatever you wanted it to do. The point is that when we jump, when a player jumps, that code is called. And that is very, very powerful. So the last thing that we're going to do before I end this video is we're going to make this chat message colored because it's a bit boring in just the plain default chat color. So I am going to show you how to use components. Now this part of the Spigot API is fairly new and it's kind of confusing, but we'll get there. So we're going to type component, just like that. We just want to make sure we import this from this import. We don't want to do the java.awt, we want this other one. I'm going to enter. And then we just do .text. And then inside here we can put a string. So we can just say you jumped. And this will do the exact same thing as before, but if we want to add a color, we can just do .color. And then we can do text color. And again, we want to make sure this we import this from the same import as before, so this one down at the bottom here and not any other one. And then we want to do again color, and then this now takes in an RGB value, so we're going to do red, so 255 red, 0 green, and 0 blue. And you see IntelliJ is very useful to give us a little preview of the color up here. So this should make our message red. Let's say we also wanted to make it bold. We can come out here to these outer parentheses, and we can type .decorate, and we can just do text decoration .bold, just like that. And now if we delete our old plugin again, and we build the new one, then we can just again come here, copy the plugin, go over to our plugins, delete the old one, paste in the new one, and we can start our server again. And you should see that now when we jump, it says it in red and it's bold. So that has worked. That is how we use the new chat components. And those can be very powerful for creating all types of formatted text. But they can also be a little bit complicated and confusing, which is kind of sad. But that is very cool. And that's all we're going to talk about in this video. In the next video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to create commands. So custom commands, you'll be able to do / whatever, and it will do something. So in the next video, we're going to learn to do that. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, press the like button. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching.